My mom folded her napkin neatly and looked at me across the table. You need to postpone your wedding, she said. Your sister's engagement party is on the same weekend. I stared at her, certain I had heard wrong. My wedding is already booked, I replied. The venue is reserved and all the deposits are paid. Mom shrugged as though it wasn't a big deal. Your sister is going through a difficult time, she said. This is her special moment. You can be flexible. Flexible. Like the wedding date I had spent years planning and saving for. Like the venue I toured alone because no one in my family cared enough to come with me. Like the guest list I had already shortened just to avoid another family argument. Across the table, my sister barely looked up from her phone. It's not a huge deal, she said with a careless smile. People shouldn't have to choose between two events. I looked at her in disbelief. My wedding isn't something people should have to choose against, I answered. I'm not postponing it. Mom's expression turned cold. If you really cared about this family, she said, you would. There was again. In our family, love always meant giving in. I glanced around the table. Dad stayed silent just as he always did. My sister wore a smug little smile. It wasn't the first time I'd been expected to step aside. I'd moved birthday parties because she wanted attention. I'd changed holiday plans to keep her happy. I'd even rescheduled my own graduation dinner so she wouldn't feel overshadowed. But this time felt different. Not because I was angry. Because I was finally tired. Okay, I said quietly. They smiled, believing I had agreed. They had no idea that okay wasn't surrender. It was goodbye. I didn't argue. I didn't remind them about the non-refundable deposits or the flights my fiancé's family had already booked. I simply finished my glass of water, stood up and left before dessert. Sitting alone in my car, I stayed still for a full minute. Then I opened my wedding planner. I scrolled through the guest list. Friends. Coworkers. My fiancé's relatives. Finally, I reached the section labeled family. My thumb paused, not because I wasn't sure but because I couldn't believe it had come to this. 4 years, my life had revolved around my sister's feelings, her drama, and her need to be the center of attention. Mom called it keeping the peace. I called it disappearing. I tapped my mother's name. Remove. My sister's name. Remove. My father's name. Remove. 3 taps. Years of disappointment ended in seconds. I emailed the venue coordinator. Asterisk, please update the final guest count. Changes are effective immediately. Sis. Then I texted my fiancé. Asterisk, I handled it. Sis. He didn't ask for an explanation. He simply replied. Asterisk, I trust you. Sis. Those 3 words gave me more support than my family had in years. That evening my mom called. So, she said coolly, have you had time to think? Yes, I answered. And? I've decided the wedding date is staying exactly where it is. She let out an irritated sigh. You're being selfish. I smiled to myself. No, I said calmly. I'm finally being consistent. She didn't understand what I meant. Not yet. The real explosion came the next morning. My sister tried to log into the wedding website. A few minutes later my phone buzzed. Asterisk, why can't I see the wedding details? Sis. I ignored the message. Mom called almost immediately. It says we're not on the guest list, she snapped. Fix it. There's nothing to fix, I replied. Silence. Then outrage. You actually removed us, she shouted. I updated the guest list. My sister grabbed the phone. You can't do that. It's your wedding. Exactly, I answered. And I'm done choosing everyone else's happiness over my own. You're punishing us, Mom accused. No, I said. I'm responding to years of being treated like I didn't matter. Memories rushed through my mind. Canceling birthday trips because my sister was upset. Moving my engagement dinner because she wanted the restaurant. Giving up every important moment so she could have the spotlight. You're embarrassing this family, my sister yelled. For the first time those words meant nothing. If I'm not important enough for you to respect my wedding date, I said quietly, then you're not important enough to celebrate that day with me. The line fell silent. Finally Dad spoke. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I answered. But for the first time in my life, it's my mistake to make. An hour later the family group chat exploded. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends had all been told their version of the story. The messages poured in one after another. Only this time I wasn't interested in defending myself. What happened? One aunt asked in the family group chat. Is this all just a misunderstanding? My mom had wasted no time. I read the messages quietly, already knowing how the story would be told. I would be called emotional, difficult, selfish. My sister made sure of it by posting a screenshot of the wedding website. Asterisk, she uninvited us because she can't stand sharing the spotlight. Sis. Just like that, the narrative was set. Instead of arguing, I typed one simple message. Asterisk, my wedding was scheduled 18 months ago. I was asked to cancel it so my sister's engagement party could take its place. I said no. Those are the facts. Sis. The group chat went silent. A few minutes later, my cousin messaged me privately. Asterisk, wait. They seriously asked you to cancel your wedding? Sis. Asterisk, yes. Sis. Asterisk, you're kidding. Sis. Asterisk, I'm not. Sis. For the first time, people started asking questions instead of taking sides. Mom called again. You've turned this into a public spectacle, she said, her voice shaking. No, I replied calmly. You did when you asked me to give up my wedding. You're tearing this family apart. I looked out the window before answering. If one boundary can destroy a family, I said, then it wasn't very strong to begin with. I'm just getting married. That's all. Her voice turned cold. If you go through with this, don't expect us to come back. I don't, I answered. After that, things only got worse. My sister wrote a long social media post about toxic siblings who always need attention. Mom commented with a broken heart emoji. Asterisk, some children forget who raised them. Sis. I read it once. Then I closed the app and never looked back. That evening, my fiancé found me standing quietly in the kitchen. Are you okay? He asked. I am. And I truly was. The fear I expected never came. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. The next morning, Mom sent one final message. Asterisk, if you go through with this, never ask us for help again. Sis. I stared at the screen. The truth was, I had never asked them for help. I paid every wedding deposit myself. I bought my own dress. My fiancé and I saved for our apartment without $1 from anyone. They weren't taking away support. They were only reminding me they had never offered it. I won't, I replied. Nothing more. No long explanation. No apology. No pleading. Just those 2 words. 2 days before the wedding, an aunt called with unexpected news. My sister had moved her engagement party to another weekend. Attendance had dropped after people learned what had happened. Apparently, most people don't appreciate being forced to choose. The night before the wedding, Dad called. I almost ignored him. Instead, I answered. You've made your point, he said quietly. Your sister changed the date. I know. So, there's no reason to keep this going. I stood by the hotel window watching the city lights below. There was never a reason to start it, I said. He sighed. Your mother is hurt. I was asked to cancel my wedding. She didn't mean it like that. Then how did she mean it? He had no answer. After a long silence, he tried again. Families compromise. I did, I replied. For years. More silence. Finally, he asked, You're really going through with this? Yes. And you're okay if we're not there? I thought about the man waiting to marry me. The future we were building together. A life where I never had to earn my place. I'm okay as long as I'm there, I answered softly. Dad didn't argue again. I hope you don't regret this. I won't. The morning of the wedding arrived peacefully. No angry texts. No dramatic phone calls. Just silence. I slipped into my dress while my closest friends adjusted my veil and smiled through happy tears. No one mentioned my family. There was no need. The ceremony glowed with warm candlelight. Every seat was filled. Just not by them. When the music began, I walked down the aisle without searching the crowd for my mother's approval. Without wondering whether my sister liked the decorations. For the first time in my life, I wasn't performing for anyone. I was simply living my own moment. As we exchanged vows, something settled inside me. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was freedom. During the reception, my phone vibrated once inside my clutch. I ignored it. Later that night, I finally looked. One unread message from Mom. Asterisk, I hope it was worth it. Sis. I read it twice before replying with a single sentence. Asterisk, it was. Sis. No explanation. No argument. Just the truth. A week later, we shared photos from our honeymoon along the Amalfi Coast. Golden sunsets. Ocean views. Laughter caught between moments. My hand resting safely in my husband's. I didn't tag my family. But I didn't hide my happiness either. 2 days after we returned home, someone knocked on our apartment door. It was Mom. She stood there holding a small wrapped box. You could have called, she said awkwardly. I didn't think you wanted to come, I answered. Her eyes drifted past me to the framed wedding photo hanging on our wall. You really got married without us, she whispered. Yes. There was no anger in my voice. Only truth. He handed me the gift. Inside was a silver bracelet I had admired years before. I bought it for your wedding, she said quietly. I've been saving it. I gently closed the box. You chose not to be there, I said. For the first time I saw regret in her eyes. Not excuses. Not anger. Just regret. You could have waited, she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. Waited for what? She couldn't answer. Because there wasn't an answer. I had spent years begging for a place in my own life. Now I finally understood something. The people who truly love you never ask you to make yourself smaller so someone else can shine. And from that day forward, I stopped giving anyone the power to do exactly that.